So good morning, everyone. Today's Thursday, April 23rd, 2020. The time is 9 a.m. Calling this meeting to order. I'm going to ask Director Callahan, if he would, to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, so attending by phone is Commissioner Bill Brooks, in person here, Commissioners Duncan and Filios. Polling for any conflicts of interest? Hearing none, do we have any changes to the agenda? I don't hear of any, so we'll move on to the first item. And the following items are actually for signings. Case number MSF 20-0003, the Glades, formerly McCarthy Estates. A request by McCarthy Capital, Inc. for final subdivision approval of the Glades Phase 1, consisting of 13 residential lots and one tract for future Phase 2 of a preliminarily approved 26-lot residential subdivision in case number MSP 18-0003 on approximately 136.7 acres in the rural zone. Director Callahan, anything?
Mr. Chairman, this item and the following two items have been prepared for you to move immediately by motion to move and approve and then sign. So in my view, you could, these are properly before you, you can make a motion, go for it.
Would you like, you want three separate motions, though?
Yes, sir. Yes, please.
Okay. I move that we execute the order of decision for case number MSF 20-0003, the Glades.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks.
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan.
Aye.
Chair Filios.
Aye, and the motion is carried. Second item, B, case number MSF 20-0004, Lone Mountain Estates, LME, 4th edition, a request by JT Holdings, LLC for final subdivision approval of LME 4th edition, Phase 1, consisting of 22 residential lots and one tract for future LME 5th edition, Phase 2 of a preliminarily approved 40-lot residential subdivision in case number MSP 19-0004 on approximately 210 acres in the rural zone. Director Callahan.
Nothing new, thank you.
Motion.
I move that we execute the order of decision for case number MSF 20-0004, Lone Mountain Estates, 4th edition.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks.
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan.
Aye.
Chair Filios.
Aye. The motion is carried. Third item for signings, case number MSF 20-0002, a request by Aspen Homes and Development LLC for final approval of Riverview Heights, a CDS, a major subdivision consisting of a 25 residential lot gated conservation design subdivision on approximately 53.91 acres in the agricultural suburban zone. Do we have a motion?
I move that we execute the order of decision for case number MSF 20-0002 for Aspen Homes and Development LLC for final approval of the Riverview Heights Conservation Design Subdivision.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks.
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan.
Aye.
Chair Filios.
Aye, and the motion is carried, and that concludes the signing section of our agenda.
Bill, are you okay if we use your stamp?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to the next item of business, community development updates. Item number 1, consideration of tax deed bid AIN 256820, Schaefer, and a potential action item. Director Callahan, please.
Mr. Chairman and Board, you'll recall this is the item we discussed at one of our updates, and you had in front of you at a business. We asked to do the research, and I'm glad you allowed us because you should deny this. This is one of those cases where we recommended and you agreed that it should only go to a neighbor because it's road right-of-way.
Right.
It is not a neighbor that wants to buy it. and the neighbor wants to use it for things for which would be illegal under the Land Use and Development Code. I mean, the person, not a neighbor. So I recommend denial.
All right, do you know, can we just deny it here, or does it have to come before a business meeting as well?
But this is publicly
Notice.
advertised notice. I think you can deny it here.
Okay,
Any discussion? Motion.
I move that we deny the bid for AIN 256820.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks.
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan.
Aye.
Chair Philios.
Aye, and the motion is carried. Item number 2, consideration of tax deed bid AIN 128085 Nagel, action item.
Mr. Chair and Board, if you'll open up in your VOCC final, go to, just find the PowerPoint and click on it. There's a couple of useful slides, and all of this leads into the third item in this morning's discussion, which I believe we'll find a quicker, surer way to review these things in the future.
Understood.
But if you go to the second slide, you can see that the origin of this dates back to 1903. The real issue here, and in many cases in these old plats, is they were drawn up by people out of state that were clueless. It's not too harsh to say on what it was they were drawing up. And so these streets and blocks have nothing to do with the topography in the area. And it's no surprise that ownership in this area has almost nothing to do with these platted lots. People over time have aggregated and subtracted and created all sorts of things. So the easy way to think of this, if you look at this drawing, K and L, L is the one that's been before you all this time. K is actually the literal cemetery that's out there on the ground. If you go to the next slide, that shows it in spades. And you can also see where the yellow triangle is a 80 acre, 84 acre property that's immediately adjacent to this AIN that you've been reviewing. That is one of 2 possible entities that could own this parcel because it's immediately adjacent. The other possibility is actually the literal cemetery, which we've discovered is a different property. If you look at where the blue diamond is on your screen, that's where the literal cemetery is. Mary did reconnaissance, boots on the ground, and discovered this out in the real world. And so what this leads me to is that you should only either see if the adjacent property owner wants it or see if the cemetery would like to do a continued cemetery in this area, which would make some sense given that Mary found there are 70 headstones in the area where the blue triangle is. So it may be that they're starting to run out of room if they're still an active organization. So again, the person that's bid on this is not one of those 2 entities. We recommend denial. And that will segue nicely into the third item that we'll discuss in just a moment.
So a couple questions here. If, looking at Mary's letter, if Robert Hansen were to want it, it wouldn't need a deed restriction for cemetery?
No, because he could absorb it,
Right,
and it doesn't have to be a cemetery.
right,
He could just boundary line adjust it.
okay,
And then there's not the issue that I would have with this if we just sold it to someone.
it's
What I didn't go
landlocked.
into, it's on the side of a hill that steeps.
Okay,
Mary's view of it is steep enough and a small enough lot that it'd be exceedingly hard to develop a home in a way that meets code and has proper sewage
right,
and fits good planning practice because, not to belabor this, but this lot size was created long before we had zoning regulations. The minimum lot size in this area is 5 acres.
Right.
And it only gets to exist as a legal lot because it was created before 1973, which has been our code for 20 years. It says if you have these smaller lots, you get to keep them. But even then, you're limited to very few uses. So in my view, the county's owned this for 80 years or so with the expectation it was going to be a cemetery. And it's bad planning practice to let it become a building lot when all the neighbors have relied on it being a cemetery or something else.
Sure.
And that's why we land where we land.
Sure, and then, so, Nagel is not a party to either
Exactly.
adjacent lots, and so this one's another candidate for denial.
Thank you.
Well said. Bill, any questions?
None.
Motion.
I move that we deny the sale of tax deed bid for AIN 128085.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks.
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan.
Aye.
Chair Philios.
Aye, and the motion is carried. Item number 3, consideration of a revised process for handling future tax deeds, which is very logical following to the prior two. Director Callahan.
I would ask that you let us know by you opening up the bid when you get it. Let us know who it is. We can do all of this level of research, presumably one time, save you and us multiple meetings and presentations.
Sure. So, the way I understand it, the notice comes to our floor, okay, or not the notice, the sealed
deed,
bid.
right, yes.
Yes. So, I was under the assumption that you guys were already told who.
No, that's the
Okay.
faulty
Yes.
part of this, and
We'll make sure that happens,
Right.
so,
We've got a process issue.
so as soon as we know who it is, we can do the level of detail we just did.
yep.
We get it to you the first time, we're done.
Yeah, and then Terry knows, because we worked on a process on our floor to say, okay, then it needs to go to treasurer, because there's some, not all parcels, but there's some that have hard costs and things like that associated. So
Right.
the treasurer's involved as well. So yeah, so we can just make sure that you find out when it's sent to you, that you know who it is,
Right.
so you can determine if it's contiguous. Yeah,
Or if that's an issue.
right.
But the problem we've been having for forever is that we get notified at the tail end after everything's gone which way, and I'd just like to be more direct.
Sure.
Understood.
Yep.
So this is an administrative decision. I don't think we need a formal motion. So I think, staff, in this case, us.
Right.
So we need to make sure that you are informed as soon as these documents,
Yeah.
tax deed bids are come into our office.
So I'm thinking it can be as simple as photocopying the envelope and sending that down.
Sending it down.
Yes.
Okay.
We'll instruct Terry to do that. Fair enough.
Okay.
Okay. Public comment? Hearing none, 9:14. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.